So I must thank all of you who have assembled here, and especially the organizers who gave me this chance. Well, I can begin with one very important verse found in one of our ancient books on Indian medical science. It is found in the works of Susruta, a great Indian medical scientist who lived maybe around 1600 years back. It's a very interesting verse which gives a very holistic, comprehensive, and very rational and scientific interpretation of the state of healthy mindedness, health not just at a psychological level, how to keep the body, mind, emotions, and feelings intact. The verse is very, very famous. Samadosha samaknischa samadhatu malakriyaha prasannatmendriyamanaha susthaha iti abhidhiyate. The Sanskrit word for a healthy person is sustha, means healthy, a state of being in a state of perfect health is called swasthyam. So what is health? You are physically healthy when your body doesn't remind you, I'm here. So, if you have a stomach problem, then body tells you, look here, I'm here. If you can be always in a state of absolute, complete relaxation, when you don't remember that you have a body, when you are not aware of body as a problem, when human body is not a burden to you, when human body becomes an instrument, not a goal, not something to be pampered and worshipped, but when human body is looked upon as an instrument for reaching a higher goal, then you are said to be in a state of perfect physical health. So the body should be in a state of balance, equilibrium, in a state of complete restfulness, tranquility, and peace. When you need not worry about the body, then you are said to be in a state of perfect physical health. So also the mind. If you feel anxious, mind becomes a burden. If you feel depressed, if you feel, I'm not just talking about psychiatric problems, but even the ordinary experiences that we go through every day in our life, anxiety, worry, botheration, too much of concern about what happens to our actions. When we worry too much about it, then we become a slave of the mind. But if we can look upon mind as a friend, as a guide, as a well-wisher, somebody who takes you by the hand and leads you in your life, then mind is your friend. Then mind also in a state of perfect equilibrium, tranquility, and peace. But one important point to be remembered is, you can never have a healthy mind unless we link our mind to a higher transcendental ideal. That's the role of spirituality. It's an important principle found in Indian schools of medical science, and now it's getting increasingly recognized in modern scientific world, that psychological problems cannot have a permanent solution at psychological level. Mental problems cannot be completely solved at mental level. You may have anxiety, you may take medicine. We may take the help of counselors, psychiatrists, medical treatment. That can only help us to postpone the problems, or to forget the problems, or maybe to run away from the problems, but we cannot absolutely and permanently find a solution to mental problems at mental level. So psychological problems can be solved only at spiritual level. That's an important principle found not necessarily in a book of medical science, but maybe one of the greatest spiritual classics known to human civilization, the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, in a very interesting part of the text, the second chapter, from 55th verse to 72nd verse of the second chapter, gives a very wonderful analysis of perfect psychological health. So it's called Sthita Prajnasi Lakshanani, means characteristics of a person who is prajna, mind, is sthita, means in a state of perfect equilibrium. You work 24 hours of the day, you work 7 days of the week, you work for a definite goal to achieve success, but still you remain totally free from anxiety. It is not freedom from action, it is freedom from the problems of action. All of us have to work hard for success. But success has its own problems, That's the most difficult problem to solve. Suppose a person has got a wonderful job, a very good profession, a lot of money in the bank, wonderful home, and they succeeded in all spheres of empirical worldly life. But still there is a vacuum left within the mental system. That's why the highest rates of suicide are found in some of the most perfectionist societies in the world. Japan, Sweden, Holland, countries where everything is perfect. Organization, industrial development, job security, social, very welfare-friendly nations in the world, where you are taken care of from cradle to grave. But then what happens? The highest suicide rates. Which means psychological problems cannot be solved at the psychological level. You can find solutions to psychological problems only when you link the mind, the psyche, to a higher transcendental source. That is Atman. In Vedantic tradition, it is called Atman. In popular theistic traditions, you may call it God. Or even if you don't believe in God, still you can be spiritual. Even if you do not believe in God, or if you do not go to a place of worship, if you don't think, or if you don't believe in God, if you are an atheist, still you can be a spiritual person. Buddha was one of the greatest agnostics the world has produced. Buddhism doesn't believe in a transcendental moral authority in the form of a God. But then Buddhism is a great philosophical spiritual tradition, and Buddha was considered to be one of the supreme examples of perfect mental health because he was a spiritual person. So how to be spiritual even when you are not religious in the conventional definition of the word religion? When you link yourself to this higher transcendental source, then you become a perfectly healthy person with a healthy mind. And what is the transcendental spiritual source? We realize that beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond emotions, there is a higher transcendental ideal. That is one eternal, all-pervading spiritual truth that is present in all of us. When we realize this, then we take care of the body. We don't neglect the body, but we don't worship the body. Anyone who worships the body or anyone who neglects the body, both are going to be physically unhealthy. Worship or pampering of the body leads to physical problems, diseases. Neglect of the body also creates problems. So when we are able to link ourselves to this transcendental spiritual reality, the all-pervading divine truth present everywhere and also present in us, then we are able to look upon this body not as a goal to be achieved, but as an instrument in our hands with which we work for higher goal. That's why in the traditional Vedantic heritage, there are 4 supreme values that should guide us, our life. It's called dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So artha and kama, respectively, means and goals at empirical level. You want a job, you need money. You want to succeed, you have to work hard. That's true. So means and goals at empirical level. But any effort to achieve success and to achieve empirical goals without taking care of certain fundamental values, which we call dharma, will lead to spiritual bankruptcy. That's why very often you find people who have succeeded so much are suffering from the problems of success. That's why I'm just quoting another verse. These traditional Sanskrit verses give flashlight into many of the realities of life in this world, because these verses were written by great sages, incidentally, who included great medical scientists also. Charaka, Susruta, Vagpada, all these were great medical scientists who lived in India in ancient times. That is a Sarira Madhyam Kalu Dharma Sadhanam. So Sarira means body, physical health. Physical health is a sadhana, means an instrument. For what? For doing dharma. For doing good for others, for taking care of families, for taking care of society, doing our duty properly every day. But at the same time, it is an instrument. It is not a goal in itself. It is a means and not a goal. Once we transcend the physical level, body becomes healthy. Once we transcend the mental level and link ourselves to the spiritual goal, then mind also becomes healthy. So, spirituality, in other words, is the very basis of physical health, psychological health, and mental health. So, according to some of our spiritual traditions, the mental system has got 3 components. One is experience. It's called bhoga. Experiences here mean what we experience within our mind, and also what we experience at the objective world. And the second component, so are twofold. Our reaction to these experiences. See, I see an object in front of me, a visual object. Over here, a voice. So I interact every day with different objects in the objective world. I also interact with some of the emotions from within the mental system at the inner mental level. And how I react, these reactions may be twofold. We like certain things and we dislike certain things. And frequently we also run away from certain things. It's called, raga and dvesha. These terms are used very much in many of the medical textbooks of ancient India. Our extreme liking certain things get us trapped into certain desires, which we really want to get out of, but we are not able to do. It is called a kind of obsession. Obsession has got a definite, well-structured meaning and interpretation in modern psychology. Obsession. We mentally we like certain things and we are obsessed with certain desires, and we know very well it's not very good, and we want to get out of this trap, this stranglehold, but we cannot. And also we dislike certain things with the same obsessive feeling, the same obsession. We know it is irrational, we cannot get out of it. So mental system is analyzed by and under three categories: experiences and our reactions to those experiences, which may be in the form of extreme obsessive liking, or maybe a great dislike. Now, this gets us trapped into a kind of mental stranglehold. We see different objects and we will have a strong desire to achieve them. Then we work for them, fully knowing it is not desirable. And then when we don't succeed, we become depressed, and gradually we lose mental health. Now, if our actions and desires are guided by dharma, if our activities, if our efforts to achieve our goals are guided by certain fundamental dharmic principles, then at one point we will realize the limitations of success, limitations of prosperity. We need success, but success by itself should not be a supreme, the ultimate goal in our life. So we link ourselves to some higher transcendental value, which is designated in our traditional scripts called moksha. Moksha, let us see, linking ourselves to some higher transcendental value. Gita has got 2 verses which gives a very graphic description of how we get trapped into these mental obsessions. It's called Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangasteshu Vajayade Sangha Sanjayade Kamaha Kama Krodho Vijayade Krodhat Bhavadi Sammoha Sammoha Smriti Vibhrama Smriti Bhramshat Buddhinashu Buddhinashat Pranasyati. It comes in the context of describing the mental state of a perfectly healthy person. When we see different objects around us, we get focused on them, then we develop a desire, and then we work for achieving what we desire, and very often we don't succeed. It is impossible for everyone to be always successful in whatever he does. So very often we do not succeed, then we get disappointed, depressed, and then we become bitter, and gradually we lose our memory, our psychological health comes down. That means we should first of all recognize that there is something beyond success. And what is the ultimate goal in spiritual life is a transcendental spiritual value. The transcendental spiritual value for a devotee of God, a traditional devotee of God, is easy. You can pray to God, work hard for success, work hard for looking after everyday needs and requirements, but at the same time, keep in mind the fact, the truth that success at the empirical level is not always a success. You win the battle, you lose the war. So people who work very hard, 13 hours of the day, become very successful, huge bank balance, but taking sleeping pills every day, suffering from anxiety, neurosis, depression, problems of sleep, because this desire for success cannot be quenched by more and more success. It can be solved, the problem can be solved only by recognizing the limitation of success. It doesn't mean that you should not work. One can work hard and still succeed, but also recognize the fact that success has its own limitations. The richest man in the world is not happiest. The most successful person in the world is not the happiest person. And we are all looking for happiness. Remember, happiness not in its purely empirical sensory sense. That's not what I mean by happiness. Happiness in its higher sense is a feeling of inner restfulness, perfect tranquility, a feeling of inner perfection when you feel there is nothing more to be sought after, nothing more to be aimed at. You feel a kind of inner completeness. At the psychological level, satisfaction in its purely sensory sense, empirical sense, is just like one side of the coin. The other side is dissatisfaction. Joy, one side of the coin of our life. Pain, the other side. You cannot have a coin with only one side. Because every success, every achievement is followed by its opposite. It doesn't follow in a straight line. Now, the great spiritual text of Hindu tradition defines what it means to be in a state of perfect contentment, and which is what we are all looking for. We take medicine for body and mind, bodily diseases or psychological diseases, because we want happiness. Happiness not in its momentary sense, happiness that is lasting. What is that happiness? So Gita is Sukham Atyandikam Yattat Buddhigrahyam Atindriyam. Sukham is the word used. Sukham here doesn't mean joy in its limited sense. Sukham here means a kind of inner tranquility, peace and contentment, which is not the opposite of discontentment. So remember, at the empirical level, at the sensory level, every joy is not actually joy, it is only the absence of its opposite. Every success at empirical level is only the absence of failure, because it is followed by failure. Because it's like one coin with two sides. Now, is there an experience? Is it possible for us to experience joy without its opposite? So that experience is called Atyantikam Sukham. Atyantikam means supreme. It's just like a coin only with one side. And Gita says it is beyond senses. It is beyond emotional, intellectual, psychological, or sensory perception. It is something which is everlasting. It gives you the feeling that you are in a state of perfect psychological, physical health, because you have linked yourself to a higher transcendental spiritual value which is beyond mind, beyond body, beyond emotions. So that is called the ultimate joy. That's why religion, in a very conventional sense, belief in God, plays a very important role in building up psychological health. That's why one of the great characteristics of a devotee of God, according to Bhagavad Gita, is Santushta Satatam Yogi Yadatma Dridhanishchaya. One is always Santushta. Santushta means always in a state of contentment, inner contentment, not satisfaction, not just joy, but contentment. So contentment is something which is lasting, which gives us inner tranquility, peace, and a poise and balance and equilibrium, which is unshaken. You work hard every day with efficiency, with absolute confidence, enthusiasm, professionalism, managerial skills. But at the same time, you also realize, I may succeed, I may accumulate a huge wealth, I can have a senior position in a big company. But then, that's not the end of it. Once you realize its limitation and work for it, then you can have it and you will have the mental health to enjoy it. Otherwise, you may succeed, but you won't have the mental health to enjoy your success. What's the use of succeeding if you are not able to enjoy the fruits of success? So, this ability to enjoy success, along with success, is possible when we transcend the physical, the psychological, and when we evolve to the spiritual level. So that's why one of the important principles in any spiritual endeavor, even for any ordinary life, is the practice of yamas and niyamas you find in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Yama, niyama. Yamas and niyama, there are 10 fundamental disciplines. Yamasa ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, parigraha. And niyamasa, shauda, santosha, tapaswadhyaya, isar, pranidhana. Even there, this contentment, santosha plays an important role. When our mind is free from undesirable tendencies, emotions related to violence, greed, great desire for possessing things, and too much of obsession for things that do not belong to us, then mind loses its ability to enjoy inner tranquility and peace, and we suffer dissatisfaction and depression. This can be countered by practicing contentment, and this contentment is possible when we transcend our consciousness beyond the physical, beyond the emotional, beyond the psychological, and when we link ourselves to the spiritual ideal. So in a very short time, I have tried to give you just a brief outline, very, very superficial bird view of what it means to be healthy physically, mentally, and spiritually. Thank you. Namaskar.
My mic. Thank you, Swamiji. At this point, we want to throw it open to you guys. If you have any questions for him, please let us know. Annaji will bring the mic around. Do you have anybody have any questions in the audience with regard to what Swamiji spoke? We do have a question. I wanted to ask you, Swamiji, is in our day-to-day life, how does one... How do you practice this connection, or how do you establish this connection to the transcendental power? Or how do you stay content? We go through so many things. Sometimes you do everything right. You're following dharma, ethically you do everything right, and things don't go well for you, and in terms of the fruits of your labor. So in which case, how does one stay detached from that fruit of that labor? At the same time, how do you stay content?
Yeah. So there is one method which could be practiced by everyone who has some religious background: prayer and meditation, especially prayer. Really speaking, from a purely psychological point of view, the great teachers of ancient times, including Ayurvedic teachers, they have insisted on the principle of prayer more than meditation, because meditation, the true sense of the term, comes after the mind is ready. And mind becomes ready only by going through the early preliminary stage of prayer. By praying to God, you can connect yourself to this higher transcendental ideal. You feel a huge burden is lifted off your shoulders. You find this idea expressed by many great religious leaders of all traditions. And even people who do not in a very formal way believe in a transcendental moral authority in the name of a God or anthropomorphic God, like Buddha, for example. Buddhist scriptures talk about prayer. So, that's right.
Any follow-up questions? Anybody have any questions? The audience? Okay. One question that we did receive while you were speaking from one of our team members is mindfulness. If you can tell us a little bit about mindfulness, and if somebody wants to start the process of meditation, what should they do?
Well, really speaking, I give a lecture in San Francisco Temple in mindfulness, the philosophical link of mindfulness. Mindfulness, as we understand today, is historically based on one great discourse that Buddha gave, and that discourse is in his Pali canonical literature. It is called Sthitupatthana Sutta, in Sanskrit called Sthitupasthana Sutra, which means discourse on a state of perfect mental awareness. Perfect awareness is possible when you detach yourself from what is going on around you. See, if we can look upon our own life, our own experiences, things that are going around us, and if we can look upon them as if we are spectators, not players in the drama of life, but spectators. You are watching, you're sitting in the gallery, watching the drama that's going on the stage. You're watching your own mind. You're watching your own emotions. You're watching your own thoughts, not as a participant, not as a participating agent, but as a witnessing agent. To be witness, there are two important principles involved. A witness should be aware of what he is a witness of. And then a witness should also be non-participant. Otherwise he won't be qualified to be called a witness. So when we are in a state of perfect awareness, but without participating in what is happening, then you find mind remains in a state of perfect mental health. Because very often, every moment we identify with so much of obsessive anxiety and deep involvement with what is happening around us, then mind accumulates so much of burden. Mind gets tired and exhausted. On the other hand, if mind remains a witness, a non-participating witness with full awareness, the mind is in a state of health. State of perfect healthy mindedness.
We have a question.
Pranam Swamiji, thank you for a lovely lecture. I have one question. You mentioned that part of the mental health consists of our past experiences, which in turn contribute our reactions to certain objects in terms of either resentment or excessive attraction or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So two questions. One, is it possible for us to change our reactions to those objects? And if possible, what are the techniques or tools or methods we can use to reprogram ourselves to change our reaction?
Yeah.
Thank you.
In fact, the very topic we discussed just now, the witness, when we look upon ourselves as a witness, the word in Sanskrit called sakshi. So, bodhrutvad audasinitva sakshitvam. So, but who is a witness? You are aware of it, you are not participating in it. So, when you feel extreme obsessive liking for certain things, which creates temptations, which creates desire, and you work for it, and you don't always succeed, you become depressed, anxious, so on. Or you feel extreme dislike, the irrational dislike for certain things. So, both creates problems. So, what we should do? We must practice detachment. Detachment not in a negative connotation, but rather perfect, witness, a perfect witness attitude. You are a witness of it. So if conflicting thought currents come, you don't drive them away. You don't antagonize them. You don't fight with them, but you don't befriend them. So, very often, if you don't like certain things, mind has a tendency to reject, and mind may antagonize. That is because we are facing our own mind. So you should not antagonize negative emotions, extreme likes or dislikes, and you should not befriend them. What you should do? You are a witness. So if you can look upon yourself as a non-participating witness, then you will not antagonize, because that is equally, it will trap you. And you won't befriend it. It also obviously is a problem. So look upon yourself as a non-participating witness. That's what Buddha talks about in this Sthitiupattana Sutta, which is a famous discourse found in the Pali canonical literature, which actually the historical, philosophical source of whatever is going on today in the name of the mindfulness. Yeah.
We have another question.
Namaskar, Swamiji. Basically, the same question follow-up. I want an example. So, for example, simple example I'm going to take. I like a desert. Right? So, how do I just say, you say, detach, right? So, how do I say I don't want this desert? You know, I mean, how do I witness, be part of that?
Yeah. Well, suppose we have to confront undesirable situations from within our own mind and also from external circumstances, external atmosphere, environment from around us, people from other people outside. Now, if there is a negative emotions, then you welcome them as your guest. As a guest means what? You should not befriend them. You also come and sit. Well, I'm living, I'm meditating, I'm praying. You can also sit there. No problem. But you should not befriend them. You should not identify them. And so how to remain in a state of non-identification is a big problem. By intellectually remaining connected to these ideas. By prayer is one means. Another method is reading scriptures. We do not talk about desires. We do not talk about bodily problems. We talk about some higher values. Our mind should be fed with positive spiritual ideas. Then mind will acquire enough health to act as a witness and not as a participant, without identifying ourselves with whatever is happening around us. So it is not impossible. We should mentally, we should keep feeding our mind with positive ideas related to this. So that's the only method.
So I think you had a more specific question with regard to an attachment.
Just a kind of, how do you detach?
Exactly. So what I would yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I just want one more point, our present condition, mental world, our personality, which is called internal organs, called Sukshma Sharira. Mind, intellect, emotions, feelings, accumulated, inherited memories and impressions. They constitute our subtle personality behind the body. So this mental system called Chittam, it contains both positive and negative ideas and emotions and feelings. Feelings and emotions which are friendly, which are helpful, and also some others which are not so very helpful. So the conflict between these healthy and unhealthy ideas and impressions creates problems. So we should increase the healthy component. We should feed our mind with more and more healthy impressions, healthy samskaras, healthy vrittis, spiritually oriented samskaras and impressions. And this is possible by practicing karma yoga. Karma yoga is an important principle. So it's got a great value. Just as our mind influences our actions, good actions also influence the mind. That's one method.
For those of you who have further questions, what I'd urge you to do is definitely meet Swamiji. He will be available at his table in a little bit. He'll be here for most of the morning, so you can talk to him one-on-one as well and get a specific answer. But from what I gleaned from this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Swamiji, is the fact that the most important thing is to try to develop a sense of detachment and look at yourself, take yourself out of a situation and then look at it as a witness, whatever the situation is, even if you're craving for that gulab jamun or rasgulla or whatever you're talking about. But I would urge you to definitely talk to him offline and ask him further questions.